There are approximately 90,000 merchant ships operating around the world today. Every year, more than $11 trillion worth of goods are transported by sea. 60% of the world's oil, 80% of consumer electronics, half of all pharmaceuticals. All of them travel across the oceans. But this enormous global trade network is controlled by just a handful of narrow passages. And the power that controls each one of those passages essentially has a finger resting on the pulse of the global economy. Today, I'm going to show you those passages and explain why closing just one of them could send gasoline prices soaring across 3 continents. Choke point. A place where 2 land masses come so close together that every ship passing through is forced to use the same route. This concept is not new. The ancient Greeks controlled the Straits of the Aegean. The Ottomans controlled the Bosporus. The British controlled the Suez Canal during the 19th century. Every empire, every great power, first reached for the choke points, because whoever controls the passage controls the trade. And whoever controls the trade controls the power. Today, there are 5 critical maritime choke points in the world. I'm going to walk you through each one, and behind every single one lies a struggle for power that most people never even notice. The Strait of Hormuz. Roughly 17 to 21 million barrels of oil pass through it every single day. That's around 20% of global oil trade. Located between Iran and Oman, its narrowest point is only 33 kilometers wide. What would happen if the Strait of Hormuz were closed? In some ways, we already got a glimpse of that risk during the recent tensions between Iran and the United States. Around 80% of Japan's oil imports pass through Hormuz. If the strait were shut down, Japanese factories could begin shutting down within 30 days. South Korea and China would also be directly affected. According to many analysts, oil prices could rise above $150 per barrel within just 24 hours. For Iran, this strait is its most powerful geopolitical card. Every time international tensions rise, Iranian leaders put the same threat on the table. We can close Hormuz. Until now, they have never fully done it, apart from periods of direct conflict. Because a significant portion of the oil flowing through Hormuz is Iran's own export revenue. But the threat is real, and that is exactly why the U.S. Navy's 5th Fleet is stationed in Bahrain. The Strait of Malacca. More than 83,000 ships pass through it every year. Over 25% of global maritime trade flows through this route. Located between Malaysia and Indonesia, its narrowest point is only 2.8 kilometers wide. The chip inside your iPhone was manufactured in Taiwan. The paper used for its packaging came from South Korea. The ship carrying it passed through the Strait of Malacca. And eventually, it arrived at your doorstep inside an Amazon package. Malacca is China's greatest strategic fear. Around 80% of China's energy imports pass through this strait. Chinese strategists call this the Malacca Dilemma. If the United States or one of its allies ever blockaded this route, China's economy could be strangled. That is why China has spent the last 2 decades searching for alternatives to Malacca. Pakistan's Gwadar port is part of that strategy. Pipelines through Myanmar are part of that strategy. And now you can better understand why the Belt and Road Initiative was created. The Suez Canal. Around 50 ships pass through it every day. Roughly 12 to 15% of global trade moves through this route, and it generates around $9 to $10 billion in annual transit revenue for Egypt. Do you remember March 2021? A massive container ship called Ever Given became lodged in the Suez Canal. Just 6 days. That was all it took. The result? An estimated $9 billion in global trade losses per day. More than 400 ships were forced to wait in line. Oil prices rose by around 6%. One ship, 6 days, and the world economy was paralyzed. But the strategic importance of Suez is not just about trade. In 1956, when Egyptian President Gamal Abdel Nasser nationalized the canal, Britain, France, and Israel launched a military intervention against Egypt. Under pressure from both the United States and the Soviet Union, they were forced to withdraw. That moment marked the true end of the British Empire as a global superpower. Today, Suez remains both an economic and military equation. And because of Houthi attacks in the Red Sea, many major shipping companies rerouted around the southern tip of Africa during 2023 and 2024. That decision added 10 to 14 days to many cargo voyages. And those extra costs eventually showed up in the prices of products sitting on store shelves. The Bosporus Strait, one of the busiest waterways in the world. Around 55,000 vessel transits every year. Its narrowest point is only about 700 meters wide, roughly the width of Manhattan. The Bosporus is different from the other choke points because it is not just a geographical necessity. It is also a historical symbol of power. It connects the Black Sea to the Mediterranean. Russia's primary warm water access passes through it. Ukraine's grain exports pass through it. Romanian and Bulgarian energy exports pass through it. The 1936 Montreux Convention governs the strait. During peacetime, commercial vessels are generally allowed free passage. During wartime, Turkey has the authority to restrict foreign warships. When the Russia-Ukraine war began in 2022, Turkey invoked those provisions. The straits were effectively closed to additional Russian warships. That decision once again demonstrated how critical Turkey's position is between NATO and Russia. Throughout history, every power that controlled this strait used it as a strategic advantage. The Byzantines understood this. The Ottomans understood this. Modern Turkey understands it as well. Bab el-Mandeb. Roughly 21,000 ships pass through every year. Around 10% of global seaborne oil trade flows through this corridor. Located between Yemen and Djibouti, its narrowest point is approximately 29 kilometers wide. The name Bab el-Mandeb translates to the Gate of Tears. And that name is not accidental. This narrow passage is the gateway to the Suez Canal. Every ship heading towards Suez must first pass through Bab el-Mandeb, which means that if Bab el-Mandeb is blocked, Suez effectively becomes useless. Since 2023, Houthi forces have launched dozens of attacks against commercial vessels in the region. Major companies such as BP, Maersk, and MSC altered their routes. Some analysts even called it the Red Sea Crisis. Delays in Asian goods reaching Europe contributed to inflationary pressure during 2024. A single region. Controlled by a relatively small armed movement, and the effects were felt across the global economy almost immediately. Now let's take a step back and look at the bigger picture. Hormuz, Iranian leverage, American military presence, and the Gulf monarchies. Malacca, China's vulnerability, a region monitored by both the United States and India. Suez, Egypt's economic lifeline, under pressure from instability in Yemen and the Houthi threat. The Bosporus, Turkey's strategic card. At the heart of NATO-Russia competition, Bab el-Mandeb, the Yemen conflict, Houthi attacks, and uncertainty in the Red Sea. These 5 choke points are connected, and every single one of them is under pressure right now. Never before in modern history have so many critical choke points faced simultaneous geopolitical stress, and that is not a coincidence. It is a sign that the world order is changing. America's unquestioned dominance at sea is beginning to be challenged. China is rapidly expanding its naval power. Russia continues projecting power in the Black Sea. Iran uses proxy conflicts to extend its influence. And these choke points have become the stage on which that great power competition plays out. But this story is not limited to the traditional choke points, because climate change may be creating a brand new one. The Arctic. As Arctic ice melts, a new maritime route is opening between Asia and Europe. This route is roughly 4,000 miles shorter than the traditional Suez route. Russia calls it the Northern Sea Route and claims authority over it. China is deeply interested because it bypasses Malacca. The United States argues that these should remain international waters. The greatest geographical power struggle of the next 20 to 30 years may take place in this region. And the new choke points created by that conflict could eventually replace the ones we know today. Tomorrow morning, you wake up and make a cup of coffee. The coffee came from Ethiopia or Brazil. Your coffee machine was manufactured in China. Your kitchen countertop was exported from Turkey. Every one of those products likely passed through at least one of the choke points we discussed today. The global economy is truly tied together through a handful of narrow passages. As long as those passages remain secure, life feels normal. But when a crisis erupts in just one of them, all of us feel the consequences. On store shelves, at the gas pump, on our utility bills. Geopolitics is not abstract. Geopolitics is reflected in the price of your morning coffee, the price of the smartphone in your pocket, the rent you pay, the groceries you buy, and now you know. Everything passes through those few narrow gateways. After watching this video, I'm curious about your opinion. Which of these 5 choke points do you believe is the most important? Hormuz, Malacca, or the Bosporus? Let me know in the comments. And if there was a moment in this video where you said, wait a second, I didn't know that, share that too. I'll see you in the next video.